we've got a very special treat for me personally and for Leroy and for, I hope, for all of you viewers, because we're being joined by a very good friend of mine, Dave Whitlock, who's going to tie some bass bugs for us. Dave, you and I have been friends for over 25 years, and we never get to see enough of each other, so it's great to have you with us.
Well, it's wonderful being here with you, Dave. Of course, I'm not sure about Leroy here, but
well, I didn't know
he behaved pretty well.
I didn't know you were either 25 years old.
Oh yeah,
and
well, it's all an act, you know.
I see.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
We're not just handsome faces, you know.
Oh, I'm glad.
One thing that we're going to do, this first fly we're going to tie is one that I've tied myself or tried to tie. I've seen it on your videos, I've read about it in your books, and I've fished with it. It's a killer bass bug, and that's the most Whit hair bug.
Yeah.
So tell us what you're going to use to tie it.
Well, obviously the common material is, the most important material, is different colors of deer hair. And this is just the hair off the body of a deer. But also for the tail, we're going to use some of this hackle. I've got a yellow variant, an orange, and then a nice brown hackle here. And then also for that tail leg part, we're going to use some of this crystal hair.
Crystal hair? Mm-hmm.
Or crystal flash, as you want to call it. And then I'm going to use some nylon that uniquely for a weed guard as well as a body foundation, and then a special hook that has a wide gape for that's a little bit better
and
for
it looks
bass.
like some rubber legs?
Yeah, we've got some rubber legs here, and those are, you know, for
now, as far as your bug goes, I suppose the viewers can tie it in any color combinations they want.
Well, that's what works well. You can tie it on literally whatever you think it might be imitating, but this is just a good general color attractor. I just call it a would-be pattern.
Right. So you're going to use about a number 6 stinger hook, or one of these wide gap bass hooks?
Yeah, it's a wide gap bass hook. Yeah, and I like to use the nickel plated one too, Dave, because that two things. The nickel plating creates kind of a mirror camouflage, but also you can use it in brackish and saltwater too. And these bugs are quite good for tarpon and snook.
Yeah, and that wide gap is important to keep the hooking qualities with that big hair bug.
Yeah, definitely. When you have a large, bulky head, you need the gape to come well below that head.
Okay,
so.
well, let's tie it.
All right. First of all, before I start, let me just show you something here. You see what I put on this hook here? That's nylon, pretty much tied and welded to the hook, and I call it my body base foundation.
I see.
And this, when I put this on, I'm going to show you in a moment how to do it.
Okay.
When I put this on, it keeps that hair from turning on the hook.
Which is very important.
Yeah, and the other thing, the other thing is that the weed guard comes around here, snag guard comes around, so that you can pull the hook over objects like lily pads and logs.
And that's basically a hard, heavy monofilament.
Yeah, it's a hard top monofilament, and it's about 2/3 the diameter of the hook wire.
And what does that make it in pound
Well, thousandths
of
of an inch on this particular one is about 22 thousandths.
Okay.
We're using on it.
Okay, well, let's do it.
Okay, got a lot of neat things I want to show you guys
Great.
here on it, because
We're
first of
looking
all,
forward to it.
the most important thing is to get this barb off, because you want to be able to hook a fish real well, and you want to be able to unhook you real well if you happen to get it.
Especially if you're fishing with Leroy, that gets to be more important.
Yeah, so I'm going to just take and put this barb right in the jaws of the vise and bend it down. That's a perfect thing, rather than reaching for the pliers and do it. And it's good to bend it down before you start tying, because once in a while, when you bend the barb down, the point will break. And you don't want to do that on a completely finished fly.
I've done that.
That's right.
Finished fly.
The next thing I want to do is something kind of orthodox. To get that weld to work real well, I just take a thin file and I actually roughen the hook shank a little bit.
See.
And this will make the thread and the glue and the nylon hold better to it. And I'm going to replace that little bit of nickel that I took off with cement anyway, so it's going to hold.
Well, that's a good point. I've never seen that done before.
I've never seen that done.
Boy, it works like a charm on any hook.
Good idea.
The next thing is that I'm going to take some super glue, and this is just kind of the viscous thick type. We call it Zap-A-Gap, and I'll just run that right along the shank, and that's going to weld this thread, which is a heavy nylon thread. And I like to use white for most of these bugs. I'm just going to wrap it from the bend.
Is that about a size 6/0 or what?
No, this is a 3/0.
You really have a 3/0.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'm going to run it right up to behind the eye of the fly. And that with the super glue will really welds that thread. The next thing I do is I'll take a loop of this nylon, and I just double it like a little horseshoe, and I lay it on the right and left hand side, just about an eye length behind the eye, and I wrap it down.
Now, obviously hasn't taken long for that cement to dry. Your fingers would be
Well,
glued to the hook.
the thing is that it dries rather slow and it's viscous, so it doesn't trap you like regular super glue.
Okay, so make sure you get the thicker
Because,
kind.
you can see the Zappa gap coming through the wraps of the thread.
I can't see it from here.
Now the next thing is that I've got this wrapped to the right and the left-hand side of the thread. You see how that is? Not up and down or twisted together, because you lose a lot of efficiency doing that. Then when I get about to the point there, I cut the shorter strand off, and then I cut the longer strand off, but I lay it on top of the hook, and this forms another foundation for the tails of the bug. Makes a wider little edge there, shoulder, and then it's going to also make the weed guard. So I wrap this down to about halfway into the bend of the hook.
Okay.
And then return the thread back. Now while I've got this piece of monofilament here, I'm going to go ahead and size the length of the guard that I need. So I stick it through the eye, bring this around, and this loop needs to travel, be down about half the hook gape. So if this is a 1/2 inch hook gape, this should be about a 1/4 inch below the hook point.
Okay.
And I just kink it a little bit with my fingers, and I cut that off there. Then I take a pair of pliers and flatten this area that's going to go through the eye of the hook, and that makes it so much easier to wrap down you wouldn't believe. And also it won't pull out. Then it just placed back there. Next thing I do is just take a little bit more Zappa Gap and just run over the tops of those threads. And that welds that filament to the hook. And you'd have to take almost a pair of pliers and really, really crank on it to get it to with it. And you can do that on a bass bug, you can do that on a nymph, you can do it on any fly where you want the body to sit really firm on the fly. So it's not just for this bug. Good. Now let's get to busy time. First of all, I want to add just a few strands of crystal flash, and I'm using yellow here.
Now you say few. Do you think people use too much of that at times?
Oh yeah, you can. Okay. I mean, one thing about it makes the fly look so good, just a little bit of it, boy. Hey, let's put some more on there. And I've seen fish actually be afraid of it. But I'm adding about 10 strands on here, and I tie it right to the top of the hook shank, and I put this back about 1.5 hook shanks long. I don't want to get too far back, but just about like that. And that's just to add a little bit of flash and attraction. I'm also going to put a little bit in the skirt too. The next thing I want to do is on my right and the left-hand side of this shoulder that I built up there with the nylon, I want to add these hackles. And so I'll take the yellow ones first, and I trim them to where they're about the same general length as the crystal here, maybe a tiny bit shorter. And without stripping the quill, I just take and lay that on the right side here, make 1 or 2 loose wraps and tighten it so that the concave side flares out. And then lay it on the other side. If I do that on the right and left-hand side of the hook with that nylon filament like that, they just sit there just as if they were,
No, why didn't you strip the fiber off of that buck?
Because if I do that, it's hard for it to really get a hold. It's a lot easier, harder to tie down because that hard stem wants to rotate around. But with the fibers on there, you don't have to do that.
Okay.
And remember too, these are big old juicy bass flies, and so we can have them a little bit bulkier anyway. So there's that. Then I want to do next is just follow that same pattern, except that each time I'm going to take some orange, put these on just, I'd say 2 thread lengths in front of the yellow, and that way they separate just a little bit, because I don't want them to all kind of stick together. And that makes the legs or the tail, depending on what you think this is going to be, stick out just a little bit better. So we've got those on there, and then I'm just going to take the 2 furnace or brown hackle and do the same thing with that.
Well, so that's a couple of neat tricks right there. Don't strip the stem and put them in slightly ahead
of each other,
of the one underneath.
And they separate nicely. Now, if they turn a little bit, you can just kind of twist them around like that and make them mine. You can see how that works. Okay, then lay it on the other side. Also, there's just a little bit of Zappa Gap left here, so it's binding these down nicely, but I still want to, because sunfish as well as bass pull on those legs a lot, and you don't want to lose them. So I'll just take a little bit of this rubber flex cement and put just on
now
the
that's the stuff that Leroy and I talk about, a rubber-based cement, which is basically
so
the rubber shoe repair stuff thinned with toluene.
Yeah, basically it. Yeah. The thing is that this stuff you can add you can pull and move material around and it won't break off or come out. It really holds better. So I want to take now for the skirt area, again, one of those yellow variant hackles, and just wrap it on. And I just fold it a little bit and wrap it around. Now this does a couple of things. It adds another action to the fly, a little bit more subtle action in the tail. It hides the hook, and also it makes a nice junction between the deer hair and the tail. So I take that and I just repeat that same color pattern again, yellow and orange.
So you're doing one in front of the other. You're not really mixing them together.
No, but they'll kind of look mixed together when I finish with them. And just catch that, and then just break that feather off. I don't even bother about cutting it off. That way I can do it a little bit faster, not quite
Sure.
I have never seen the fibers not stripped off the quill. That just amazes me.
Well, come to Arkansas. We'll show you a lot of
Oh,
things.
I'm sure of that. Yes, sir.
Well, you
Anyway.
know, that's a joke, but I'd love to come down to Arkansas and fish sometime with you.
Well, you know, the door's always open
Oh,
down
I'd
there.
love
We've
to
got a
do that.
beautiful new place. We've got a 10-acre place with a 3-acre pond in the backyard
Oh,
of it.
that's neat. And I bet
Big
there's
old
maybe a
bluegill
bass
and
or
bass.
two in there.
Yeah, and what I'm proudest of, though, we have our fly fishing schools there, and they have and we have the students tie a fly and walk right out of the classroom, and literally within 2 or 3 casts, they've got a big fish, and it's usually about a 3 to 5 pound channel cat.
Oh, no kidding.
And actually, they usually tie 4 or 5 flies, you know, just in the hour or so, and they'll lose almost every one of them on a catfish. Once in a while, if the catfish leave them alone, a big bluegill or bass. Okay, now I've got the what I just call the skirt, and you see how the skirt kind of goes back over the leg. That's why I call it a skirt, and it's a mini skirt too, which I like a lot
I know
better.
you'd like that.
I like that so much
Yeah.
better at my age, I tell you. Now, the next thing I want to do is take about 8 or 10, again, of this crystal flash, and I'll show you the neat thing. I'm going to hackle with it. So I'll add a little bit of sparkle right in the hackle. You just lay them straight across the hook shank, like that, you see. And 1 or 2 wraps folded into the hackle, and you see now how, whoops, it slipped off. See how that goes, Leroy? See, see that's all blended in there. Now
Folds
we've got a
right
nice
around,
little sparkle
sure.
in there.
That's great.
And that twinkle to a bass's eye.
Yeah.
Of course, these work for bass. They work for panfish, snook, tarpon,
Northern
redfish.
pike in bigger
Oh,
sizes.
northerns eat those things up like you
Oh,
can't
yeah.
believe. In fact, the largest northern pike I ever caught, I caught on a fly very similar to this.
Yeah.
I won't tell you. You wouldn't believe me if I told you the size of it. So I'll just say it's large. Anyway, but the next thing I want to do now is have some fun and tie some deer hair. This is one of the things that I guess most people, when you say, okay, it's time to tie deer hair, beads of sweat break
Oh,
out
yeah.
on their head and stuff.
Yeah.
And deer hair is very simple to tie.
I've gotten better at it since I started watching Leroy do it.
Yeah. Oh, is
But
that right? Yeah.
deer hair always gave me fits.
Well, you know, you choose nice, coarse body hair, and the main thing is that to choose that good coarse hair. A lot of the better material companies now actually sell it as bug hair or deer hair for tying, and you want to get all of those shorts out and that little fuzzy stuff out of there. The next thing is that you decide that if you use the base of it rather than the tips of it for flaring and getting buoyancy, you're better off.
It's much more hollow.
The other thing is that you notice I've done is I have shortened that hair until it's about half the length that it was before. The shorter it is, the easier it is to flare, the easier it is to handle, and the easier the next thing is I bring my thread up, you know, just about a 1/4 inch past the skirt, lay the hair in a clump, and I go around twice loosely, once, twice, and I tighten it just enough to where I can turn loose of it. Now what this does is that it allows me now to begin torquing the hair around the hook, and I spin it around the hook, and then I tighten it. So I move the hair around with a torque, and then I tighten it.
You bet.
A lot of people try to torque as they tighten, and the hair won't run around even. Now, you remind me, this was a flat hook shank. That wasn't a round,
That's right.
slick hook shank.
That's
We
right.
used to tell people when we
Oh,
taught
yeah.
deer hair tying, they had to have a slick, flat, non-threaded hook shank. If you know how to torque that around, doesn't it?
That's right.
Now, the next thing is I just push that really firmly with my fingers or a little tool. Some people prefer to use a tool, but I like to feel it better. And a little tool doesn't let you feel how well it's packed. And then I just take a second bunch. Anytime you're trying to make nice color bands, as this is going to be, if you add 2 bands of the same color rather than 1, just torque that around and tighten it. It works better. It makes it a little smoother. and then pack it down, just as if you just.
This packing is a real secret,
Oh
too.
man, yeah,
To
it
getting
really
a
is.
dense
To be-
body and to
Yeah. If you want the
getting
bug to
good
last
separate
and float,
bands
yeah.
and-
Yes.
Now you see how nice that is from the bottom.
Yeah.
Then the next thing is that I'm going to take a little bit of brown here.
Now, do you
Right.
always go the same color combination?
Oh no, sometimes I vary. In fact, I think I want to take some black here. I think it'll contrast a little bit better for what I want to show you folks here.
I notice you're not using any kind of rubber cement or anything on the hook.
Oh
under the
no,
hair
if you
now.
don't, Davey, it just makes such a mess.
Yeah.
It makes it a little more durable bug, but for me, I just get it all over everything. So I'll take some black now and just lay in there. Same thing, 1 or 2 wraps around. Try not to get the yellow, and then torque it around and flare it.
Yep.
And the black is so contrasting, I don't need to use quite as much of it as I did the yellow.
I think this is a good point that we need to stress again, is that you're torquing it around and then tightening it. You're
Yep.
not trying to do the two together.
No, if you do the two together, you don't get to go around
Yeah,
evenly.
It
yeah.
will stay on one side or the other.
That's right.
Because I think most people do it the other way and get into the problem.
That's right. And they end up dissatisfied with the result, and they say, "Oh, I can't do deer hair,"
Yeah.
and that's just not it at all. So I just start again, 2 wraps around, torque it around, and then tighten it, and then just get your fingers and pull it back, fold it back, almost like you would a hackle, that front part, and
I do get the idea you've done this before.
once or twice. I love to tie flies. Somebody said the other day they like to watch me tie flies because that I had kind of a rhythm about it. But it's fun, you know.
Oh,
It
sure
really
it
is.
is.
Now, the next thing I want to do is just to add a little bit of brown up here on the body to kind of match the brown of the hackle. Again, just cut that out. And if you pick hair that's really good, you don't have to take a lot of that underfur out. But if it has a lot of that fuzz in there, you need to get that out of there because the hair won't flare well, and it also will absorb water at a greater rate.
And Dave, you see how small the clump of hair is he's putting on?
That's another good point.
Yes.
Don't
Smaller,
you find that a
very
lot of
small.
people use way too much?
Yes.
Yeah. Now they do that for a couple of reasons. I think is that they want to get the job done as quick as possible, but I think they think using a lot bigger hair will float better. And instead of using a great big bunch, I use 2 small bunches. Again, that's the same effect.
And it's easier to control.
Yeah. Okay, let me get this on here. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to put a little light colored face on here. And that's so we can see it. You know, a lot of times when we're bass fishing, we want to have, you can either use white, but I'm going to use this little fluorescent yellow because it'll kind of blend a little bit better with the whole bug's color. But then you can see it whenever, you know, when it's floating in the water and all of a sudden it disappears, you know you got a strike or what have you. Because they don't always just come up and slam it. A lot of times they'll just suck it down real easy. Now there's the head of it. Now the tying essentially is done. What I want to do now is trim it real quickly and then take and put the weed guard on it. It's important, let me get my scissors here where I can get to them a little better. It's important to cut most of this hair off the bottom so that hook gape is exposed. If you don't do that, it won't hook well.
Even with that wide gap, you still
Yeah, well,
trim
see, it still needs to come down.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're
Because
trimming
that-
it fairly flat then?
Reasonably flat, yeah. And also that makes it sit on the water a little bit flatter too. Then, because you decide you want to make this a diver or a popper, we're going to make this one a popper, so I will trim off essentially the area around the skirt to a little bit smaller waist area. And that's for 2 reasons. One, to get the bug to sit like this in the water. Because most things, terrestrial and aquatic, like frogs or big insects or what have you, turtles, you name it, water snakes, whatever it might be, usually float head up and legs down or tail down.
So if you want to make it a diver, what would you do?
I would leave that up there and make a point down here. In other words, I'd leave a kind of a collar on it.
So as you twitch it, it'd go down and come
Yeah,
back
yeah,
up. Yeah.
So you have an option, you know, you can do either one.
Do you, if you're going to make a diver, do you leave the hair natural? Do you put some cement on it to make it a little more solid?
I leave it natural, but a lot of people prefer to put some cement on there so they can get
A hard finish.
yeah. But and I don't put hardly any collar on a diver. I put just a real small collar because I don't want the wind resistance and I don't want the disturbance on it. Now, see, it's pretty close to being right. I just want to go ahead and trim this up here a little bit.
And like we've said many times, spinning hair, the problem with spinning hair or trimming hair is you don't know when to quit.
Well, you know, I found a lot of my students, they fall so much in love with this, with this hair, they don't want to cut it off, and they get real oversized. Anyway, get that down. Now I want to attach the weed guard. So I put the nylon strand right through the vice jaws. I reattach the thread here. 3 or 4 wraps. And then trim the excess thread, stick this loop in through the, and I wrap it down first on the bottom, Dave.
Okay.
Oh.
And then I make sure I've got it sized right. And then I just bend the top part of the loop down.
But you've already flattened it.
Yeah, and it makes it so easy
sure.
because it's flattened and it just,
Okay.
man, rolls right down. Now, one other little trick I want to show you here. I'm going to, instead of doing a whip finish, I'm going to do a Zap-A-Gap finish. And that you just take the Zap-A-Gap and you wet the thread with it for about 2 inches. Pull the hair back so it doesn't get caught in that, and just start at the eye and grab consecutive wraps back. And you get in the hair, make 1 wrap and stop. And then hold it for about 5 or 6 seconds and cut it. And that'll,
Without even a half hitch.
man, that'll work. It's just that's there
Uh-huh.
for eternity. And that's a little bit easier to do, and a little
Yeah.
quicker on that.
Now, is that reasonably waterproof, that Zap-A-Gap?
Yeah, it's 100% waterproof.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, we don't have a lot of time left, but are you going to put eyes on this one?
If I've got time.
Or why don't you tell us about the eyes and let's not do it?
All right.
if
Eyes
if
and
that's
legs.
possible.
Okay. Well.
Oh,
sure.
the legs, yeah, we've got it.
Eyes and legs both.
Yeah,
All right.
all right.
Well, first of all, then I'll just trim 2 little sockets.
Yeah.
So there's the 2 eye sockets in there. They have to be cut in there like
Right,
sockets.
right.
And then we take this rubber cement. It's the same kind of general stuff that you patch your running shoes with.
Right.
If you run.
Very thick.
If you don't run, you don't need to patch them. But, and then.
You're just putting it in each socket?
Yeah, put a gob in each socket like that.
It's going to have 2 eyes.
Let me take that glue.
Okay. Thank you for that one. Then I just take these little doll eyes, these little hollow plastic eyes, and put into each one like that.
Uh-huh.
And you know, the minute that you put them on there like that, you begin to talk to it because all of a sudden it becomes a little
Yeah.
Muppet
Now,
character.
you can buy those eyes at a craft shop.
You can buy them at craft shops or fly shops, either one.
Mhm.
They're very popular nowadays. In fact, I think I was probably the one that kind of introduced them
I
to the
think
fly
you were.
fishing world.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, there's a little bug tied with the eyes on it. And then I want to show you one other little quick thing, is that I used to tie those rubber strands in, we call legs.
Mm-hmm.
And now I use a little loop of nylon on a needle, and I sew them through. I just stick the needle right next to the hook here.
Above the shank?
Yeah, right above the shank. Put the loop in like that, and take 1 strand at a time. You don't want to rush it too much. We'll just take this yellow strand here, and you just pull that and sew it through. Like that.
Okay, why don't you rotate that hook to
All
the
right.
camera so they can see
Okay.
what you've done.
Okay.
One
See
more
that?
time, you have a
Just sew it through.
monofilament loop on a needle,
Yep.
and then you
And
just
I've
stick that
I've
through.
glued the loop on the needle with the same Zap-A-Gap material, so they don't have a big bulky area, so
Right.
it pulls through. Then let me put now a black leg in here, or an orange one, but just
Can
again.
you do that in a vertical plane so the camera can watch you do that?
Sure, right through like that. In fact, I'll kind of watch the monitor for a second. You can see it. See the loop go through.
Okay.
Now, once you get about like that, then you just take. We'll see the orange strand next here. Come on, get off that table. And put this on right through the strand like that, and just pull it.
Missed it, Dave.
I know it keeps shaking around, not me shaking.
I see.
And just pull that through too. We're rushing this eyes a little bit. Goop, it won't come out like that. Now there's the orange sewed through.
Unbelievable.
And then I just trim them off, kind of the length that I want them to wiggle.
Okay.
There's you can leave these real long, but if you If you leave them too long, they don't have the
So
action.
you don't
of
have to
water.
use any cement or anything to hold them there. They're pretty much there.
You can, if they're sewn through right, they do. Usually what I do in order of stick them so is I'll put a little bit of flex cement on the body, let it dry, and then I'll sew it through that flex cement. And that's the most Whit hair bug.
Great looking fly, and I know from first-hand experience the bass love it.
Dave and Leroy have produced 2 90-minute videos covering new and exciting tips on how to make your fly tying better and more effective. They introduce you to everything you need as a beginner and demonstrate helpful techniques for intermediate tiers. Fly Tying Techniques Volumes 1 and 2 are available by calling 1-800-883-0124. Cost of each video is $28.95 plus shipping and handling, or get the 2-volume set for just $52.95. You can also order the programs in this series. Each 90-minute videotape includes 3 programs for just $22.95 plus shipping and handling. To order Fly Tying, the Angler's Art videos and techniques tapes, call 1-800-883-0124.